Good morning, everybody. We're delighted to be here, if not just a little bit apprehensive. It's not our normal thing to stand up in front of so many people, so please bear with us. Absolutely. So as an adult hospice, we decided to embark on a project 2 years ago, really responding to the very clear need within our community to offer extended choices for families and children around end-of-life care and after-death care. As you can imagine, this really pushed us as an organisation, both professionally, emotionally, but we believe the results are fantastic, and we're happy to be here to be able to share them with you and perhaps encourage you to look at your own organisation. So I'd like to hand over to Becky. Becky is a community children's nurse and team leader on the Isle of Wight.
Which button do I press? Okay, so the Isle of Wight, one lovely, lovely place to live, but we are surrounded by water. We have a population of about 150,000 people in the winter, which goes up to about 300,000 in the summer. We have approximately 40 children at any one time with a palliative care need on the island, and we have only 1 to 2 expected deaths per year in the under 18 category, thankfully. Our nearest children's hospice is in the most amazing place, but it is in Winchester, so over the water, which costs an extortionate amount of money. Anybody that's been to the island can look to pay up to and over about £100 in the peak of summer just for a one-way ticket. So the families were telling us, this is too expensive for us to go. This is far too far for us to go, away from our social networks, away from our supportive extended families. They were telling us that it was just not doable. So out of those 40 families that we have on our palliative care needs, only 2 of those families were actually accessing Naomi House. So we had, as the key professionals involved with these families, we had an obligation, we felt, to explore the service that we were giving and not providing. So they told us, the families told us, that there was not enough respite for them on the island. There was not enough family support. There was no counselling specifically targeted at them. And there was only choice of death at home with the support of the Children's Community Nursing Team, or in the middle of an acute children's ward. So I am going to tell a story, and Pete will tell a story again shortly afterwards. We are going to use real children's names. Their families are very proud that we're talking about them, and they're very proud that we are using them and their experiences to shape the services that we're now using. So Asa was an amazing young man, and he had an equally amazing family. He was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis at the age of 3. He died in 2009, aged 17, at home, with the support of a very small CCN team. So his family cared for him at home. They did an amazing job. He has an older sibling, and she was aged 18 at the time. She tells a story of missing out on her childhood, missing out on the attention of her parents, because there was no health-led respite. So Asa took up an enormous amount of time. She doesn't begrudge him that at all, but she does begrudge the time that she missed out on. She also talks very openly about the lack of support she had psychologically, and the impact that Asa and his illness had on her while she was growing up. Asa was adamant that he was not going to die in hospital, and he spent as least time as possible in hospital. So that was not a choice for Asa and his family at the end of life. So their only choice was to die at home. They felt very supported by us as a children's community nursing service, and we went above and beyond and did everything we usually do for end-of-life care over a long period of time, including Christmas Day visits, Boxing Day visits, and spent a lot of time with the family. We actually used Asa. We used EMH for the very first time with Asa. So EMH, sorry, it is the Earl Mountbatten Hospice. We approached them because we were really struggling with his symptom management care. So he was the first child, even though he was 17, that we approached EMH for some help with. And we did receive some really, really good advice. So the island has these children are too small in number for one agency to provide a service for them. A full hospice, full children's hospice, just isn't needed. We don't need it. We wouldn't use it, thankfully. Families were telling us that we weren't quite meeting the grade. We weren't quite getting to the point of providing them with an excellent service. So we had to pull together lots of agencies. We had a fantastic commissioner who was right behind us and absolutely bombarded everybody with requests to come on board and to meet the needs of these families. Dr. Jack Tracy is a clinical psychologist from the YMCA, and she explains it quite nicely, hopefully.
I think that healthcare on the island is excellent. And I think that we are very lucky to have the commissioners that we have for children's services. But when you are a small place, it means that there might only be small numbers in certain areas that need certain types of medical care per annum, and it's really easy for those groups to be overlooked. So it's really, really important that you work in partnership, so that, if you like, you're kind of spreading the load. You've got some trust element to it, some CCG element to it, and then some third sector element to it. And it means that people are getting almost like a cross breadth of services, but it's not coming out of one pot. And I think that's really a sensible way to work. And I think it's quite an innovative way to work. And I think more and more trusts and CCGs and voluntary sector are working out that they really do need to work in partnership to make sure that there's excellent services given to children, young people and adults. And we're sort of running pilot projects here on the island that I think probably are going to lead the way for what other places in the UK might do.
Okay, this slide demonstrates the different agencies that have taken part in the building of this service. So Naomi House, they led a pilot project and delivered respite services from Naomi House using staff from the mainland to come over to the island, and found that it added staff, training for staff that we have now employed from the island to deliver that respite. Families' voices have been absolutely key in the building of this service, and Layla's Trust was a charity built by Layla's family. Layla was a baby who died aged 78 days old, and she died on the acute ward because her family didn't feel able to care for her at home, because we didn't have the extra added on services that we have now. Kissy Puppy is another family charity set up by a family through a fear of hospitals and through feeling that they may be unsupported at home at time of need. The YMCA was commissioned to provide psychological services from diagnosis right through to bereavement. Together for Short Lives have been an amazing resource for us and given us national clout and offered their expertise. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust provide staff. So we provide all the children's staff from the paediatrician with an interest in palliative care, and they have increased staffing in order to provide a new respite service. Earl Mountbatten was slow off the mark, I have to say, and it took years of nagging, years and years of nagging, but it's paid off eventually, and Pete's going to tell you about that now.
So the Earl Mountbatten finally listened. We heard the messages, and this really because of this little girl. This is our little princess called Sophie. Sophie, in 2012, was diagnosed with a supratentorial high-grade glioma. Her family were very passionate about what they wanted for Sophie, as was Sophie. She was passionate about what she wanted. They didn't want to go to the mainland. They wanted to be at home. They wanted to be near a home. They wanted to be near a family. And that was really important for them. So, as I said, EMH listened. And we decided to look inside ourselves as an organisation to find out, why haven't we done this before? Our mission then in 2013, we are here for you and those you love, to help you live well and die at peace in the place you choose. Our vision was to lead and develop services which ensure an effective and timely response to the needs of those in our island community with life-shortening illnesses. Surely that was Sophie. It didn't exclude her. And I would encourage you all to go back and look at your own visions and missions. And does it exclude children? So what did we do? Quite simply, we created a memorandum of understanding between us and the provider trust. That memorandum of understanding said that we could be used as a clinical setting for the delivery of end-of-life care for children. It didn't say that we, as the hospice staff, were going to deliver that end-of-life care, and that's one of the key things in this. So the children's community team continue to deliver that end-of-life care within our hospice setting. We also set up the notion and the idea that we could develop what we kind of call a resting service. And the idea of the resting service was that when a child has died, regardless of the place that it dies, it can come to us so that the parents can have the opportunity to spend valuable quality time before passing them into the care of the funeral directors. Obviously, this was a bit of a change of tact for Earl Mountbatten Hospice, so there were some practical things we had to do. We had to contact the CQC. We had to find out, was this contrary to regulations? We took their advice, but they were supportive. It was quite easy, in fact. They wanted policies, which we produced. They wanted locks on doors. They wanted safeguarding training, which we were already doing. So that wasn't too bad. Now, being a dad of 2 young children, I should have known this, but this was put forward to me for a potential slide. If you don't know, this is Baroness Bombburst from the film Chitty, Chitty, Bang, Bang. The significance of this is Baroness does not like children. She abhors them. And funny enough, that was the reaction within our hospice. The notion and the concept of bringing children into our hospice, there was fear. There was fear for professional boundaries and for emotional boundaries. And that wasn't just for nursing staff, that was throughout staff, throughout volunteers. It also led to the island community questioning, what are we? Are we a children's hospice? Are we an adult hospice? Are we playing at something here? No, not at all. We're responding to local needs. So in 2013, Sophie died in November. So it's quite poignant that 2 years on after Sophie's death, we're here sharing our experiences with you. That fear that was felt by the staff was very, very real, and they left it to the senior management team to get on with it. They said, if you want to do it, you do it, but we're not getting involved. So how has it moved on? Becky told you earlier that we expected maybe 1, 2 children